So we're talking a little bit about the history of the application monitoring products. So if we go actually back a long ways, we've had Pingdom for a while, which is end user monitoring. So it's kind of from the outside looking into your application, really from that end user's perspective. Then we also purchased a product called Vibrato, which is infrastructure monitoring and custom metrics. And also kind of some cloud monitoring, things like platform as a service monitoring in AWS and Azure. Then we also bought a product called Traceview, which gives you code level visibility into your applications. And over time, Traceview and Vibrato became AppOptics. So trying to kind of make it easier for the users to kind of get observability into both their infrastructure and their applications. And in this session, we're going to talk about kind of what we've done since then and where we're going. So really what we're trying to achieve with our different SaaS products and what our users are asking for is observability. So what is observability? Really in a nutshell, it's being able to observe or see into the different parts of your systems. So if you think about, a modern web application today where, user makes a request, it goes from the browser, across the network into a web tier application, then maybe into something like Kubernetes, and so on and so forth. It's important to be able to see into all the different components, the network, the application, the infrastructure lying underneath. So when something does go wrong, you can understand what it is, who's responsible for fixing it, and get to resolution as fast as you can. So now we're actually going to do a bit of a demo and show something new that we've done to kind of help increase observability and make these troubleshooting flows easier. When we talk about the history of the applications, we've also brought, now that we talked about bringing Traceview and AppOptics together, we've also brought now together what was AppOptics and Logly. So a lot of people use, infrastructure metrics, application metrics, and logs to get the observability into their applications, really understand what's going wrong. So in the screen that I'm showing you here, on the left-hand side, we have things like dashboards. We have services, which is the APM data from AppOptics. We have infrastructure metrics, so insight into containers and the hosts that are running them. And now we have logs as well. So right in this kind of integrated experience that we've brought these products together, we've got logs, metrics, infrastructure monitoring, cloud monitoring, and applications all in one. On the theme of observability and kind of being able to understand what's wrong, and we've also created this new homepage. What this homepage does, and it's really designed for, is helping you understand, is there something broken right now? And if there is, what's broken and who should I get to fix it? So if you look at the screen here, we've got top services by response time trend. What this is showing us is which services are slower right now than they were a week ago. And jumping out at us here is we've got our web tier service. It's running at about 56% slower compared to a week ago. We can also take a look at our services by error rate. So the web tier is 97% slower than it was. The error rate is 97% higher than it was a week ago. Basically twice as many errors as there was. And you can also look at request volume. There's something different there. Are we running some sort of sale on an e-commerce site? Suddenly our traffic is exploding. And same thing kind of on the log side. So we can see that, hey, is there something different? Are we seeing increased log volume or errors or anything like that from our services or our hosts? In this homepage that we're looking at here, pretty clear we've got the web tier jumping out in pretty much all the locations. Slower this week, it's got more errors this week, it's spewing out more log messages. And kind of lastly on this page, we're also calling out some of our infrastructure that's running hot. We can see that there's this one host, AO Demo 1, that's running really high CPU. It's basically pinned about 99%. So if we want to troubleshoot this more, it's pretty clear that there's something wrong with the web tier. It's certainly worse than it was a week ago. I can click into the web tier really in any of these locations, but we're going to take a look at the latency problem first. Why is it slower this week? So we clicked into the web tier, and it gives us a pretty good summary of what's going on. It's showing us the last 6 hours here, saying, hey, response time is about 56% higher compared to a week ago, and most of the time is being spent waiting on remote calls to the booking service. Kind of going back to that observability trend, being able to understand what's going on in the application, what might be the problem, where might be who should we get involved to fix this? It kind of spelled it out for us, right? We know the response time is higher in the web tier, and we know roughly that it's being caused by actually a downstream service called the booking service. If we want to dig into this latency issue further and really understand, okay, what's going on in the booking service? Why is this truly slow? All we have to do, click on this View Trace Request button here. And this takes us to essentially a scatter plot or a heat map of requests. So if we want to understand what's slow, during this big spike here when users were having poor experience and they're waiting for just 20 seconds for a website to load, we can actually just click and drag a box. And this will filter down to those requests. Then I can just click on one of these. I can look at a request that took about 22 seconds. And then when we open that up, we got to get more information about why this was slow. So this request took about 22 seconds. We can see that 80% of the time was being spent waiting on remote calls to the booking service. And if we actually want to see, okay, I get it, it was spending a lot of time making calls to the booking service. If we want to see why the booking service was slow, we can just click once more. So now we're kind of a couple layers deep, right? We started out on a home page, and it said that the web tier was slower this week than last week. We clicked into the web tier. We found a trace that said, hey, most of the time it's being actually spent waiting on the booking service. We clicked into one of the calls to the booking service, and it was, of course, the database. Right? Most of the time was being spent making these MongoDB queries. We can see that, hey, there was about 500 of them, over 500 of them in total. We were basically in some sort of N+1 query loop that was inefficient. So we went from really high level down to, the problem was a specific query loop pretty quickly. The next thing we can do, we kind of want to see this in a little bit more context. We can look at the details, see kind of the control flow of how we went from web tier down to database calls. And talking about the integration that we just built, if we will also want to look at the logs from this transaction, kind of increase our observability, we've got a direct integration to what was Loggly now in the same interface. And we can actually just click search logs. We're still, within this same APM integrated experience. We've still got access to our services, infrastructure, and logs. And what we've done actually here is instead of going to, a logging product and guessing which logs might be related to this same request, we can actually just click on that search logs button. And these are the exact log messages from that request that took 22 seconds. So really, we're trying to kind of make these workflows easier for our users, basically the community, and hopefully the people watching this session, just by kind of reducing the number of clicks, surfacing this information, and making it kind of easier to get to that root cause. If you think about logs, metrics, and traces, they're kind of just different perspectives to the same application, or in this case, the same problem. So we're making those workflows easier by bringing that data together. One of the things that you might be thinking, I did mention at the beginning of this call that Pingdom has the end user perspective. Pingdom is still part of our SaaS portfolio and our APM suite. One of the next things we're working on is trying to bring that into this same experience to kind of give the full end-to-end visibility from end user, your uptime checks, synthetic transactions, including and connecting it to the applications, the traces, the metrics, and the log. And if you are, say a monitoring engineer, or let's say an infrastructure engineer, and you're not really responsible for these applications, infrastructure is really kind of your domain, and that's where you live. Building on this topic of observability and seeing, how are these things connected, and if there's a problem in the infrastructure, how does that relate back to an application? We go to the infrastructure link on the left-hand side. We can actually look at all of our infrastructure that we're pulling, either from EC2 or from running an agent. And we can actually group our infrastructure by service. So if you remember at the beginning of this call when we were looking at the home page where it said, hey, the web tier was slow and there was one host called AODemo1 that had a really high CPU. When we group our infrastructure by service, we can see that, hey, there's one host running our web tier service. Actually, right now, it's got 5% CPU, which isn't that bad. Memory utilization at 42%, pretty healthy metrics. We can actually click on this and see what else this host is doing. So we can see when we look back at 6 hours, when we had that issue and we had our latency was higher, we can see that, hey, the CPU was spiked, our user CPU was through the roof, system CPU basically took it to 100. And actually, when we can look at all the services that are running on those nodes. In this example, this is basically essentially a single host running a bunch of Docker containers and services. You might be running something like Kubernetes where there's a one-to-one relationship. But in this case, we could see that, hey, when the CPU is spiked, we can see its effect on different applications, right? We can see our web tier spiked up. We can see we also we're running the booking service on here. The booking service latency went up to 500 milliseconds. It kind of gives us that context to understand, hey, if I respond to an alert on just the infrastructure, out of memory, disk errors, CPU, how is that really kind of affecting the end user? Like, what's the context of that? If I'm an SRE or if I'm an infrastructure engineer, I get an alert at 2 in the morning and it says CPU's at 100%. If I come in and see, hey, this is just running some analytics service that's, I really don't care if it's slowing it down right now. But if I come in and see, maybe we have customers in a different time zone, and, it's really slowing down our web tier, maybe causing errors or causing an issue, that information can really give me the context of, hey, can I snooze the alert and go back to sleep? Or is this something that I need to solve right now? We've got just a couple minutes left, so we'll open it up for Q&A. Take a look at the question. First, if you do have any questions, put them in the chat and we can answer them. And if you're wondering kind of, how to get started with this, if you want to play around with any of these products, you can go to, appoptics.com, sign up for a free trial, play around with it. And also, if you have any feedback on this stuff, the community feedback is what drives these products. It's what makes us make decisions to put them together. If you ever want to talk to the product team, we're always willing to chat with you. So reach out in Thwack. Both AppOptics and Loggly and Pingdom are all in Thwack right now. So reach out to us anytime, and we're happy to speak with you, either on a call or just in the forums.